Hey everyone, welcome back to the It's a Mind Game podcast. My name is Jade and I'm a personal trainer and mindset coach specializing in HA and ED recovery. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by the wonderful Ladore, who you guys absolutely exploded over with her last episode talking about her HA recovery journey. And the ongoing feedback was your contagious energy. So, without further ado, I'm so glad to have you back and to have another powerful, energetic, inspiring conversation. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and let the energy roll.
The energy, like your smile again, it's just got me. We're a couple of minutes in. We had a little chat before we actually started this chat, and already my cheeks are just like sore.
I know.
So we got so carried away in the last episode, and we only kind of just scratched the surface of you getting your period back. So why don't we dive into your periods come back? Now what?
Yes. So my period came back, and I always knew, after the third cycle, everyone always says 3 cycles, and then you're recovered, you're good, you can do whatever you want. But I believed that. And so that's what I thought. I thought, okay, I just have to do this 2 more times. I can do that. And started realizing second one took longer to come, and my ovulation was late, and my cycle was 45 days long. And I'm thinking to myself, if this happens multiple times, I don't know if I'm comfortable just being like, all right, I'm done, I'm recovered. I mean, maybe I should really just ride this out a little bit longer to see if my cycles can get shorter. And so I started doing a little bit more walking, a little bit more yoga, some light weight training to see, I consulted Jade to see whether does this affect my cycle at all. And I noticed that when I took Jade's instructions and when I did 2 workouts per week, just based on me and my goals and my progress and everything, 2 workouts a week that were at 30 minutes or one that was at 45, it was good. It was starting to get shorter. And then there was 1 month, it was upon, I think it was like getting my fifth one back. And I thought, you know what? I can do this. And I worked out more, not out of disorder, not out of need, but out of excitement. I love lifting weights and I love strength. And then my period was it came back, took a long time, and it was very light. So all that time to build up my uterine lining, and it was light. So anyone listening to this podcast, I want you to know that some people, they get 3 periods and then there is like clockwork and they are going, and it's great. And I love that for them. But there are other people, I want you to know that it's not always going to be like that. So be prepared to have to play around a little bit and to still be in recovery for a little bit longer. But I was already doing recovery, so I already knew how to do it. It was just more so patience. And so then they started getting more regular, and they started getting shorter. They started having similar flow lengths, and it was really rewarding to see that I really put in the work for them to become regular, which is something that before we lose our periods, we take it for granted. We see it as, oh, I got my period. Oh my God, I'm on my period. But really, this is for you to have your period that is regular is such a gift of nature. And so it was great to see them come back, and I had to just be very patient and whatnot. And I would notice, okay, I'm getting, a cramp right here in the middle of my stomach that feels a certain way. And that would usually be right the day before my period. And I was taking temperatures, so my temperature would drop the day right before my period, or the day of, because it was up in that luteal phase. And so I was really just becoming in tune to my body and how it worked. And it was just so amazing to me that the same body I've been living in for the past 11 years has such a different, like I saw it so differently. Like it gave me so much. It rewarded me. So it was amazing. It really was. Because I thought it would never come.
Like you went from it's a long journey, isn't it? But do you feel like you went from a position where perhaps you were almost like the owner of your body? So you were always feeling a particular way and then almost directing it what to do. You will go for the run today. You will go lift heavy weights today. You will go do this. And
Yeah.
I might have used this example before, but sometimes the best parallel I can draw, where if you have a dog and you're training it, it's like sit stay, right? And you expect the dog to sit stay. And I found
Right.
that when I went from being in HA recovery, that's what training looked like. It was like, no, we are doing this, and I don't care how you feel, what you're thinking,
Oh yeah.
what other activities you've got on, sit, stay, right? And then you go
Exactly.
through this HA recovery process where you kind of break through that. And then to the point of your story with the training side of things, how you reintroduce, step back, reintroduce, step back. You went from that dynamic of sit, stay to, oh, hang on, this sit thing isn't working so well. What else can we do? Should we sit for a little bit? Should we stand for a
Yeah.
little bit? Should we maybe hold steady? And then
Right.
dynamic change from almost disciplining your body or having it be obedient to being in harmony with it.
Wow. You said that so well. I mean, you said that really well about how like you're the owner of your body. Like I knew exactly what you meant because before your body owned you. I mean that's what we felt like, absolutely. And one of the perfect examples is that during the pandemic, um, before I had my garage gym that was inspired by it, but we couldn't go to the gym. Everything was closed. It was all locked down. So I remember it was like a freezing cold morning of rain, really rainy, really crappy, terrible weather. And I knew that it was leg day because it was Wednesday or whatever day it was. And I'm doing legs no matter what. And during the pandemic, because I didn't have an indoor place to work out, I would do lunges all down the street with a barbell and a weighted
Mm.
vest. So I knew in the morning, first thing, I was going to be waking up and doing these lunges in like in this terrible weather with the wind is blowing all the heavy hail rain towards your face because it's leg day. I got to do leg day. And even I didn't enjoy it. But and I remember my husband saying to me, because we worked out together, and he was like, well, what if we just do legs tomorrow? And we were going to rest tomorrow. So we could do rest day because I was trying to get better at resting. It came and went in phases. Sometimes I would do good at resting and then other times I wouldn't. But he'd be like, we could do it tomorrow. And I wasn't okay with that. This was the schedule. Nope. It's like I'm being led. But it was like I was being led by the boss. But now I am the boss. And it's amazing because I can see, how do I feel today? And you taught me so much about cycle syncing that it just blew my mind about this whole concept out there that so many women that don't even have menstrual issues, or more so I should say, have never experienced a missing period. They don't even know about this. They don't even know about this. It's amazing that you can be in charge. Like when I get clients that come to me and they say, "Oh my God, I'm on my period. I should listen to that." It's like that's something to listen to and be like, "Okay, we're gonna deload. We're gonna train not as much." There's gonna be days where it's like I don't kick my ass, and then other days where you're like, "All right,
Mm.
I'm ready to go." So you get to be in charge of that. You always could have been. It's just that it stole me away. So I absolutely could relate to that.
Mm. I love that you touched on what you said about clients as well, because I don't know about you, but when I had HA and obviously training like a demon, I would have clients come in and be like, I'm on my period. And I'd be like, yeah, and like, come on, you're here. Just
I
go
know.
push hard.
That's
Cause
what I would do when
I
I was on
literally
HA. Yeah.
I couldn't comprehend it. So I don't want to sound awful, but it's the truth. I just saw it as weakness. I'm like, stop making excuses.
Yeah.
Like, you're
Me
here,
too.
train
I saw
hard,
it as
go
weakness.
for it.
Yeah.
I I didn't
Yeah.
actually understand that it's certain stages of the cycle, and it's not always consistent, that you legitimately may not be able to put your best foot forward because physiologically it's just not the day for it. So I look back in hindsight now and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I could eat my words
Yeah.
but I truly didn't know any better. Where that is helpful for anyone listening though is that you can't always assume that your trainers know everything. And
Right.
obviously, best intentioned always. Even though I said, come on, let's go, I did have their best intentions at heart, but it was through lack of knowledge. I didn't actually know. And I guess I just wanted to highlight too with that cycle syncing side of things, because I feel like it gets really mushed up with the buzzwords of cycle syncing, because the buzzy side of it is very much you must do slow restorative on your bleed and you must take it easy and meditate. And look, for some women who find that their energy levels do drop on those first days of their bleed, or they do feel like they can't train or their energy is really down, that's completely fine. But there's plenty of women out there who, as soon as they have that drop and their bleed comes, they feel invincible. Like, it is the best time for them to lift heavy, run fast, jump high. And it disappoints me when it kind of gets misinterpreted as everyone's the same. Because if it's the one thing we know through this process, look, we get a bleed,
No,
that's the same, but that's about it. Everyone else is,
right.
it's like, I love
And
how
so it's
Stacey
really
Sims
just
refers to it
individual.
as, yeah, she refers to it as a woman's own lived experience. And I love that because it takes away grouping everybody up, right? So when you're looking at that cycle syncing approach, it's maximizing what you're feeling and when you're feeling it versus falling for that setup of, oh, so and so said that I'm only capable of yoga on my bleed, so I'll just do that. When in
Right.
reality, no, that's your time to be hitting PBs. Like, and that's
Yeah.
why we as women, we need to take responsibility for that and go, okay, I'm learning all this information, but I need to trial it out so I can learn what works and what doesn't, not just assume that XYZ influencer, book, TV show tells me that I feel this way. It's like, no, what do you actually feel? Because if you can tap into that, everything changes.
Right. Absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah. And so for the clients that said, "Oh, I'm on my period, I feel like crap," then that tells me that's how they feel. But before I saw that as like, well, so like, get over it. We're doing abs today. I mean, it was that type of thing. I just thought it was like that they were complaining. I mean, that's all I thought. Like, and it makes me seem heartless as well. So yeah, so I'm so glad that you clarified that for all the people listening, because I just knew what I knew and I instantly said, oh, well, whenever someone does feel like crap on their period, so thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying that. But it's amazing, our bodies and the cycles that we go through and how every woman's cycle is so different. And I feel that way
Mhm.
about pregnancy too. Every pregnancy is so different, and the way that you feel during pregnancy and working out, and some people are able to do that and some people, they don't feel good. So it's amazing.
Let's lead there, right? So you've gotten your period back, you've started playing around with training. We had the consultation to get a little bit more fine-tuned, and that's one
Hmm.
thing that was really beneficial because you had such a wonderful understanding of training and training protocols. You didn't really need the whole kit and caboodle when it come to the cycle syncing
Right.
approach. You just needed the pillars and you went, "Oh, cool, I've got that." And then off you
Yep.
went with it, right? Which is awesome. How did you transition then from really leaning into what your body needed on the training front into this positive pregnancy test?
Yes. So I went through, because I have an obsessive personality. I went through a time of obsessing over all of the workouts I was able to do, and oh my gosh, I'm planning it early, everything, because I was just so excited to work out. And when I noticed that um maybe I did a few extra sets, or that time where I did extra workout, I realized that it affected my cycle. And so I was brought down by that. And so a few cycles later, I decided I'm just going to plan it when it gets here, see how I'm feeling, see how this goes, and just start my workout without planning it all ahead of time. Because, like, I'm a personal trainer, I plan workouts. That's what I do for a career. I didn't even want you to plan mine because I wanted to plan mine because I love it. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm just gonna, you know, get there and see what do I feel like doing today, and I started doing that more, just kind of showing up to my own workout and deciding, because I realized there was some rigidity, some owning still going on, some non-owning still going on. And it could have been a coincidence. It could have been that my mind was at ease, but it was that month that, and every month we had sex when I was ovulating, regularly. And that month is when um I got pregnant. And every luteal phase, I would take pregnancy tests when it was way too early, just because I wanted to know. I wanted to know. And this time I said, I'm just not going to know. In 14 or less days, I had a 12-day luteal phase usually, which is, pretty average, pretty normal. And I said, I'm just going to see. in 12 to 14 days, I'm either going to get my period and I'm going to celebrate because I got another period, or I'm going to celebrate because I got a positive pregnancy test. And it was like almost like a surrendering of like, I know that I can be obsessive, but I'm just going to trust the process. It was like all I had left. And that is when I had a feeling one day that I was like, I know I'm not supposed to take this pregnancy test early because I made that rule, but my period was due the next day. I was on 11, around the next day, I was at cycle or 11 days post ovulation. And I just thought, what is the harm in doing this? And I took the test, and there was the faintest little line ever. And because it was so early. And it was amazing to me that when my attitude changed, because I didn't realize I was still kind of obsessive. It's like when you eat more freely, but you don't realize, oh, until you're with other people, maybe I do have some food rules still, So it was incredible to me. And it took work to do that too. Um, but so that is just my spiritual. I'm very spiritual, but I think it all happened when mind, body, spirit was in everything in that department. But I did have to play around with how much working out can I do and how does it affect my cycles. And I didn't like that I had to play around because I was very, type A, orthorexia. I want a formula. Give it to me. I am going to be a rule follower. But instead, it was more like, see how it works. You got to wait until the end of the month. So it was definitely really good for me to learn to be more flexible and whatnot.
I love everything that you just shared, and I had goosebumps when you were describing the
Me too.
surrender. Because if I summarize my personal experience with it, surrender was key. Um, and it's not something that I knew that I needed until I found it, if that makes sense. Like it was
Right. It
always
makes
follow a
sense.
protocol, follow this, follow that, do this, do that, because you just want to get it done. You just want the process over with. Like you just want your period back. But then when you
Right.
start to get this sensation of, I can choose in the moment, I can feel in the moment, I can decide in the moment, I I have options. There's like this heaviness that begins to fade, and the trust that you feel, it almost feels guided. It's like I'm safe to trust.
It
Like
does
it's
feel good.
it's 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 okay. And I love that you brought up that mind body spirit sort of connection, because I think there's such a beautiful part in the HA recovery process. And look, it's not one that everyone experiences, because some women
Mhm.
do recover through a very protocol focused recovery. Like I'll
Of
just
course.
follow all the rules and I'll get it back. And you know what? You've got your period back. It's incredible. Still claps to you. When women have that spiritual sort of changeover, I guess, that real feeling of surrender, I think it really leaks into the rest of their life. Like
Oh,
suddenly, even with their careers, they still have a goal with their career, but there's an ease of, as long as I'm making good choices, the next career opportunity will come, right? So I'm not suddenly always trying to push for it. I'm just trusting I'm putting in all the work and it will come together. And I've seen
exactly.
so many women as well, their relationships with their partners change, whether it be coming together with someone or even splitting up, because suddenly they're awakened to what's really going on, and then the trust comes in and they can just go with the flow instead of overanalyzing and controlling everything and making everything be what they want it to be, instead of realizing what things are and then making the decision if it serves them or not.
Right. That was exactly. And like my brain is healthier now. Like when you're eating food, you're feeding your brain. So that's your brain. Everything we're saying about how do you know if you're, I mean, how we make better decisions now. Like as long as I'm making the right
Mm.
choice, I'm gonna be okay. I trust that this is the right path because I know that I'm making the choice that's right for my body, rather than trying to find the answers elsewhere and trying to force it and trying to be driven by adrenaline,
That's
because we're
such
not
a
running from the.
rush. Such a
Exactly. Yeah,
rush.
it's such a rush. It's a high.
Mm.
I'll admit it felt great, but we're not running from the bears anymore. I mean, and HA, your body thinks you're running from a bear every time you work out. That's why our reproductive system is suppressed. because that's what humans were before we were civilized. So we're not running from a bear anymore, so we're able to think better, our brains better. Everyone, my family said there's more Ladore to love, and I loved that, how they
Oh, I
said
love
that.
that.
So absolutely. And back when I had HA, like what you said in the last podcast is like, even telling someone to take a week off, they would have been like, oh my God, so bad. Like I remember
Mm.
all of that. And it was just so hard to take any time off, even 2 days in a row, if you were sick or something. And so, that was always so hard. And then during recovery, I started, there was a point in the beginning where I started walking a lot, and I was doing 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles. One time I even did 7.
Mm.
And then it rained one day, and I realized on a day I was going to walk that I couldn't walk. And this was in the way beginning of HA recovery. And I noticed that I got anxious, and I said, you're not really recovering now. If you're now just changing the walking, you're basically replacing the walking with the working out. And I'm now getting that same, and I recognize that. And I said, I'm doing this for a reason. It's to help myself. So I almost kind of forced myself not to walk for a whole week. No, I did do that. And I was like better after that, because I was starting to abuse that in the beginning of recovery. Because I was like, well, if I can walk, that's what I'll do. I'll do that instead. But it wasn't actually, I didn't walk because I wanted to see the scenes or listen to music or a podcast. It was more so to try to get the steps in. It wasn't like natural. And right
Mhm.
now I've been going to the gym. I'm feeling better. I'm in my second trimester, like the golden era, and for me, everyone's different. And it's been great, working out 4 days a week, doing things that I can do for like 45 minutes. And then last night I was chopping veggies, and I completely chopped my hand, and it was a big ordeal with, blood everywhere and the bandage. And now that puts a damper on my working out. And I just thought, well, it's frustrating, but it's not anxiety anymore. I if I did that before in my HA recovery, I learned to rest, that it was good for me. Of course, it would be good for me during my pregnancy. So of course I would be working out right now, but that's okay. Working out is a choice, something I want to do for my heart, for my joints, for my brain. It's not something that I have to do. I'm not in the military reporting for duty. So I feel free.
There's so many things you say that I resonate with and just love. And the first thing that pops up, which is what you were just saying there, you never want to be a slave to your exercise, right? Because
Hmm.
that's what we turn out to be. We're a slave to it. We can't not do it. And that's not a good relationship with it at all, even though we can put that spin on it, that's discipline, right? No, I'm just a
Right.
disciplined person. It's like, no, discipline is actually being able to know what is a good choice for you and act on it. It's not discipline if you are going to the gym when you feel completely burnt out, knowing you need to take a day off, and you still go to the
Hmm.
gym because you're disciplined. The discipline's actually taking the day off, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but as soon as I started waking up to my BS and calling myself out on my so-called discipline, things started shifting because I started realizing how many stories I was telling myself to get the outcome I wanted, right? And to your point of the walking, you called yourself out on your BS. You're like, I'm just walking, I'm just walking. And all of a sudden you're like, hang on, I'm a bit worried about that missing a day of walking because of this rain. Why am I walking? Oh, geez, this isn't leisurely. This isn't for fun. This is because I need to replace 1 hour of training with 1 hour of walking or else.
Right.
Right. And that's where there's so many developmental stages within the process, which is so valuable because you don't know your own BS until you know your own BS.
Yeah.
And then once you
Exactly.
find it, they're like little threads where all of a sudden you're like, hang on, is this another story I'm telling myself? And then you pull the thread and go, oh, crap, here it is. Right. And it's actually really empowering when that happens. Like the changeover from I'm disciplined and I do this because sometimes I'm better than other people, right? I can be hardcore, no one else can. I can diet, no one else can. There is an element where we kind of elevate ourselves because we do hard things. But if you were kind of to flip the switch on it and go, well, let's say you're comparing yourself to the person who eats freely. right? They can have a burger when they want to. They can also have a salad when they want to. Who's more disciplined on pulling the brakes on when they want to, right? Because that all
Right.
or nothing around food, it's not discipline, it's a hardcore rule. But if
Yeah.
you've got someone who can actually go, you know what, my intention for today is to eat really clean. Cool. But I'm going out for dinner for tomorrow night, and my intention is I'm just going to enjoy the heck out of a pizza,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
That actually takes more to be able to ebb and flow than just hardcore. I don't do pizza. I don't do chocolate. I don't do,
Yeah. All black and
especially when you've
white.
been in the extreme. Yeah, right. Actually going back and forth is difficult. And yeah, I loved how you shared that, because it was like you started to call yourself out on the BS, but every time you called yourself out, freedom come with it. Like there was a direct exchange.
Right.
And then now you're in a position where you've injured your hand, and all of these situations have led you to the point where you can go, okay, look, this isn't fun. I'm not glad I've injured my hand. I'm not glad I've got to take the day off. Because I guess another point is, I think some of us, we just love exercise. Like it's who we are, it's
Yeah.
in us, right? So, and I think you're one of those people too, where
Yes. I love to move my body.
training is
Yeah.
exciting because it just feels good and you want to do it. Where some women go through the recovery process and they let go of a lot of their exercise and that feels right for them, right? And others can't wait to get back into it, but not in the way that we were in this
Right.
newfound form, right? Where we
Yeah.
can still strive for success and still want personal best and to still keep pushing, but also know when it's appropriate to step back. And in all honesty, I can't wait to talk to you in the future and your beautiful baby's here. But I think
Aw.
going through this whole experience made me a better mum, because kids come with so many what's the word? I can't think of it. Like it's very hard to predict things, right? So you go from like this
Right.
clean cut lifestyle to um I just can't think of the word
Chaos.
from the tip of my tongue. Hey, let's go for chaos, right? And because I had, let's say, HA recovery training to just go with the flow and accept that some things will go to plan, some things won't. When motherhood come around, which it's an incredible time of life, and it's also challenging, but I was so much more equipped to handle the changes because I was in a
Mm.
position to go, I can surrender, I can take a day off, I can miss a week off or 2 weeks and everything's going to be okay. I can train in the
Right.
afternoon instead of the morning because the morning nap didn't happen, or I can trust someone else to cook my dinner because I'm wiped off my feet from being up all night feeding baby. Like I can accept the help of someone cooking for me. And motherhood would have been so difficult if I think about my past self going through that journey. Because again, even though so well intentioned, and of course, I would have loved my baby so much, no matter what, the level of anxiety I would have faced by not having predictable scheduled days, I, oh, it would have been intense to say the least.
Yeah.
So I love when women share what you're sharing now, because I feel
Absolutely.
like, baby's going to come and you're going to have part of you that still strives to do something for you. But there's
Mm.
also the part that goes, you know what, I've got to follow baby's lead for a little while. And that's okay.
I love that so much. And we're equipped more to change in all different settings, not even just in the workout. Like, so I know exactly what you mean. Like just more flexible. Like I told you in the first podcast that I never traveled because it was just I couldn't, log all my food. And when I did travel, like for a cousin's wedding or something where I had to be there, my family would have to rent this big, you know, vacation home so that I could have an oven and a stove and a microwave and a fridge and a grocery store. So everyone, I would wake up first thing in the morning and meal prep for my whole week, make everyone wait, and then, have to bring my whole big giant tote, my big cooler bag with me everywhere so I could eat my scheduled meals at my scheduled times. And
Mm.
it was a lot of work. And that's supposed to be called a vacation. So now when I travel, for an example, I'm just naming a different setting, is that I notice it's more flexible. I'm like, well, we'll just go walk around the town of where we're at and then see if there's something that I feel like eating. I might feel like eating something really healthy, just like what I eat at my house, or something that is because I'm on vacation. I've got something else to eat. Because I've always been into, wholesome eating, organic eating. But if it's ever not, organic or if it's processed. It's more like it's not a disorder, it's a decision. It's like, do I want this right now? And if I don't, it's just because I'm not really in the mood for it. I'm not really in the mood for something salty or sweet right now or anything like that. Okay, I'm getting off on a way different topic, but anyway,
No, 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 I love it.
I'm ADHD and and so it'll happen, but I definitely agree that there's more change and it allows for more spontaneity in life and fun and memories. So absolutely. And like when my day gets flipped around and a client cancels and now I have my break at a different time than I had before, I'm less rigid. It's like, okay, I'll just, eat now and then train later instead of the other way around. And it's okay because I've already done all of this work. So like being a mom, like this, I'm so grateful for the HA recovery journey because it gave me this flexibility. And that's what it's going to take as a mother. I don't regret any of it. I don't regret the weight gain. I don't regret anything. It made me a better person.
And the time helps too. Like in the moment, it's like, I just want it over with. But we need practice with these skills because it's really easy to whiplash back into our old ways if we haven't rehearsed this new way of living long enough, right? And it's quite common that it happens. But sometimes the blessing in recovery taking longer for anyone listening going, oh, this process is that you get to practice flexibility, you get to practice surrender, you get to practice it. And the more you do, the better you get at it. And to your point of going on holidays and then choosing foods that suit you, one, it makes the holidays much more enjoyable because you can
Mhm.
actually be present with your friends and family versus going, where's my 6-pack bag? What did I meal prep? Do I need to leave it in the car? Do I take it with me? Is it going to be a
Yep.
microwave? Right. This, like, it's not just taking your little 6-pack bag. There's like 30 other things that come with it versus, hey, let's just go for a walk. And when we stumble across a cafe, if I feel like something, I'm going to eat it. And if I don't, I'll just wait till the next cafe or I'll wait till I get home. And you also touched on the quality of food choices, right? And I feel like I get quite passionate about this side of things and I would love to hear your input on it. I feel like there's a big thing with ED recovery that if you're recovered, you should be able to eat cakes and chocolate every single day, right? And there is a level of that yes, like you should be able to. If you want to, you eat it, no big deal. Like literally, no big deal. But sometimes there's this suggestion that choosing a salad after ED recovery is you're not fully healed because you're choosing
Oh,
a low calorie option.
it's a
Where
judgment.
personally,
Yeah.
there's and the best way I've found I can describe it is to say that every person on the planet has food values, right? So for me personally, my food values, for the most part, I want whole foods because I want it. It feels good in my body. It feels good on my brain. It just makes me happy. But if I am to go to a restaurant, I'm happy to have things that I'd never cook at home, right? But where my food values lie is me personally, I won't go through a drive-through service. I won't eat McDonald's or KFC or Hungry Jack's or any of those kinds of things. And it's not from an eating disorder position. It's just one, I really don't like the quality of the food.
Yeah.
And two, I haven't eaten it in, gosh, probably like 10 years now. And in all honesty, even when I
Same.
did, I didn't like it that much. Like I mainly ate
Yeah.
it because my girlfriends would be there and it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just get something. Um, but it can be misconstrued where for me, the empowerment comes from if I'm going to eat something, I'm going to enjoy it. Like I really want to enjoy it. I'm not going to just go and eat something because I
Yeah.
might be perceived as not recovered if I don't. And that could be going with a group of friends out and everyone eats and I choose not to purely because it doesn't tick my food boxes. Like I'm not
Right.
happy with it. And then we'll wait 10 minutes. I'll find a nice little cafe that's got something really yummy and then I'll go eat there. And I think there's two strengths in that, which is one, holding true to your values, which is if you don't want to eat something that doesn't feel good or it's not a good choices, linking back to our good choices chat, but also having the strength to even eat by yourself later. Because I don't know about you, but I would never eat by myself. Right. And I hated anyone watching me eat. It's like, how dare they know I eat? It was real strange. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
new dynamic where if everyone's eating a food that I'm not into, and then let's say 10 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have my turn now.
Oh,
And that's
yeah. I
it.
hated that too.
Like
Yeah.
that's easy now. It's just like I can go eat.
Yeah.
Everyone's had their food. I'm going to have mine now. No big deal.
Right.
Versus I'm not going to eat what they're eating. And then all of a sudden I've missed my window of opportunity. I can't eat now because no one else is.
Yeah, totally. I knew exactly what you meant. Yeah, it's definitely, yeah. You just nailed that right on. And it's like what do you want to spend your money on? You know, like like I mean, think about it. If you're gonna go out, you're not, you're not cooking the food. Someone is cooking for you. You are being waited on. This is a treat. It's a luxury. You're paying for this. It's
Mm.
convenient. So what are you going to enjoy? What are you going to indulge on? And like it doesn't always have to be something that I don't like. Like I always thought those foods that, like you said, all the you know, like fast foods and burgers and all that. I didn't really like those even then when I ate them 10 years ago. And I didn't like them because they made me feel crappy. So that's just how I responded to it. And I didn't like it.
Mm.
So just because I'm in recovery doesn't mean I have to do all the things I didn't do before. Like I have to start eating that. I don't like it. So when we go out on a date, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to indulge in this like big bursting colorful bowl of like avocado and beets and salmon and kale and with like dressing now that I didn't used to do. So it's not just because of the integrity, but of the ingredients, but it's also that this is my palate. This is what I love. Like you said, it makes my brain feel
Mm.
good. And I would bring my own food everywhere during HA, like everywhere. And like I'd bring it to my family's get-togethers, my husband's family's get-togethers, parties. And I didn't like the way it looked when people noticed that I'm eating something different, but I was definitely not going to starve.
Mm.
Some people can go hours without eating. I was never like that, not even in HA. And maybe because I wasn't eating enough. I mean, I was always so hungry, but nowadays I can go like 4 or 5 hours, but I'm just a grazer. I enjoy snacking. And so I would bring my own food and I would get a lot of attention. What are you eating? What are you eating? What's that? And like I was like, I just thought, can you just leave me alone and I will eat my food and you will eat yours? And like just like why do we have to focus on the fact that I'm different? But that's because I was
Mm.
self-conscious of what was going on. Now, I went to Germany with my husband's family, and that was a huge deal for me. And that was when I was cycling, but not pregnant yet. And they were eating some foods that I didn't want to eat. I just didn't want a greasy sausage. So I would find like something that I was in the mood for, like a bread with a very lean deli meat on it that I wanted, like these delicious baguette sandwiches that they had with greens on it and veggies. And I thought that looks delicious. That looks so vibrant. And when people say, "What are you eating?" I didn't get bothered. I would say, "Oh, this, do you want a bite?" I was very much like, it's delicious. I got it from
Mm.
over there. I might go there again tomorrow, or if you want to come. Like it didn't matter to me as much because I wasn't so, it's like we say that the problems that we see in others is often the problems that we have in ourselves. So
Mm.
they weren't doing anything wrong by asking me what I was eating. But to me, I knew, that this is something different. I have an issue. So yeah, I know what you mean. It's a lot easier now to eat on your own afterwards. A lot
Yeah.
easier.
And I love people not even just sharing because there's sometimes in that experience where because you're so restricted that the idea of someone taking a bite of your food is like you
Oh
will,
yeah.
but you
Oh yeah.
don't want to because it's like it can be on a calorie counting front, but like I added up exactly 100 grams. And if you have a bite, now I've only got 80, now I'm off. Or it could be like, I really don't have anything to spare. Like this is, don't take away from my
This is
meal,
all yeah.
where you get to a position where you are a good body weight, you are feeling good and your body's doing all the right things. And those gestures come back to fruition where you can don't even think it's a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, do you want some too? Or can I have some of yours? Or let's just swap and taste test and do all those fun
Right.
things without thinking about it. It's very like easy, quick and accessible. It's just like yes, no, versus let me think about it. And then yes has 50 outcomes and no has 50 outcomes.
Yes,
And then it's so
exactly.
exhausting that you just go, I'll have a coffee. Because it's too hard. You don't want to spend so much
Exactly.
mental energy on these things where now it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, nah, yeah, nah, yeah, nah. And it
Right.
makes life a lot more simple. I do have one more question before we wrap things up, and it's related to what we were discussing on the food front with easy decisions and food values. and also pregnancy. So I'm not sure if you've had any cravings kick in yet, but to add some context, um, when I fell pregnant with Cosima, I was still early days of recovery. So I'd been working on it for a year, but it was only like 3 cycles in. So there was still work to be done. Um, and I remember I couldn't eat chicken. I couldn't eat like broccoli and cauliflower because the thought of it turned my stomach, right? But salty like packets of chips made my
Mhm.
heart sing. And these are previously foods that I'm just going to call them an easy no. I'm not afraid of them. I just never wanted them. Like they were just a nothing to me. Like, yeah. But then I'm pregnant and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need salt. Like, I think if there was the salt lick close by at the farm, I would have just like started licking a salt lick. And then all of a sudden, I'm faced with this, oh crap. Like, I know to the finest detail, the exact flavor that I want and how it's going to taste and how it's going to crunch in my mouth. And I had this back and forth of should I, shouldn't I? Because I haven't perhaps had these chips in 10 years or
Right.
but I really want them and I'm okay with that. But are you okay with it? And I ended up having the chips, and you know what? They were everything my brain remembered them to be. And I remember there was one food in particular, I don't know why, but I don't know if you have them over there, but they're called meagre noodles. And they're a packet
Oh.
noodle, like hot water, and the
Oh
quality of them,
yeah. We call that
no good.
ramen. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's no good. It's
Yeah.
oily, it's salty,
Oh my God,
it's
that's
all
so funny that you were
it's
craving that.
it's all the things. And I haven't had these noodles
Yeah,
since
it's
I
all
was
the things.
18 years old. And I could taste them. And I'm like, on the food values front, I can't. Like I'm pregnant and they're too crappy. I can't do it. And then I said to myself, if I still wanted it 20 weeks, I'll have it. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I get to like 20 weeks, 2 days, and I'm in the supermarket, like getting these noodles. And I went home and I ate them. And in all honesty, they were everything that I wanted. Like they hit that craving perfectly. But I feel like in that experience, there was still an element of me that was trying to lean into what I really wanted and desired, that was still bridging that food values front. Because on the food values front, it really didn't meet my little criteria. That was flexible. But then I still was able to do it because I'm like, you know what? I literally can't stop thinking about it. Like, for whatever reason, my body and my mind really, really want this. I'm just going to say yes. Like, when has that turned out bad for me? When I've actually
Right.
listened to that. Um, have you experienced any cravings where there's a particular food where you're just like, oh, I really don't
Yeah.
know about this, but every part of your being is like, you do know about this. Yes, you
Yep.
do. Go get it.
Yes.
And what has that been like for
Absolutely.
you?
Yeah. And by the way, just to piggyback really quick, is that we would have punished ourselves for eating that back then by
Oh,
doing extra
absolutely.
or and now, just like how you said, when has it ever been wrong when you've eaten that? Like we would have punished ourselves. We don't do that anymore. It's just amazing. Just to say that because it's like a completely different person. But anyway, yeah. So while being pregnant, I couldn't in the first trimester have chicken also and coffee. Two things I used to have like every day.
Oh,
And now my aversion is gone. Sometimes I don't want chicken, but but the coffee I'm drinking that again. But then the cravings, interesting is that I also crave salty things, but cheese, lots of cheese, and then also I have a relationship with peanut butter that is complicated. So the cheese is something that I always said no cheese please whenever I did have to order something, or always without the cheese, no cheese please, take cheese off of mine, because of all the saturated fat. So I always just never had cheese. I went all these years without cheese, and because it was out of sight out of mind, never had it. Then before I got pregnant, started having cheese every now and then, thinking maybe I need this, and it was pretty good. I would have it sometimes, and I would honestly forget that it was in the house sometimes because I was so used to not having it. Well, in this pregnancy, I'm absolutely craving cheese. And I know I've eaten a lot of saturated fats daily. And I'm like, well, I mean, in a normal world, they would tell you that, you need to watch your saturated fat and everything. And like, but also, isn't my body speaking to me that I want cheese? And so if, sometimes I'll have 2 slices and then I'll have another 2 slices later that day. And it's just so crazy because cheese was something that I had taught myself that was bad. Like, I didn't even crave it before. It was more so just that's not allowed. Like, I didn't even allow myself to think about it. It was just already off limits all the time.
Mm.
Um, and then the other thing is peanut butter. That's something I always thought about. I love peanut butter. If you get me near a jar, I'll lose control with a spoon, not even putting it on anything. And that is my thing. And people would say that's their weakness, is what they say. But I didn't allow myself to have peanut butter during just all the time. I never bought it. I told my husband, if you want peanut butter, you have to keep it in your car or something, because I'm not going to have it in the house. And it was a disordered relationship for sure with peanut butter. I would get very nervous if I was around it. And because it's so good. And then I told myself, when I get my period back, I'll have some peanut butter, celebrate. And then I never did. And then I said, well, when I'm pregnant, I will get some peanut butter. I mean, duh, what else? Like, why wouldn't I want it then? And then I never did. And then I said, when I'm 12 weeks pregnant and I'm past that hump of, like, you're past that hump of, risk of a miscarriage, then I'll have peanut butter. And then I did buy it, and I wasn't nervous around it. So I wonder, would I have been nervous around it before if I had bought it at all those times when I was already so recovered? I don't know. I'll never know, but I wasn't nervous around it. I enjoy it a lot. It's my favorite food. And so, but that's something that I always had anxiety around. Have you ever had a food that literally just the thought of it, if you went somewhere and you knew it was going to be there, it is not okay. You're going to find a way out, and that's how that was for me. So, but I do have to say though, peanut butter is delicious. People who don't like it, they don't
Yeah.
understand.
Well, interestingly enough, it was nuts for me, like mixed nuts. So I never really ate
Yeah,
peanut butter
nuts. Me too.
until like
Nuts, peanut butter.
after
Yeah,
HA. And again, like I didn't eat them because the whole calorie side of things. And I never really even liked them before I started dieting. Like I don't remember liking them, but at some point I remember looking at them and feeling this like, if you start that, you won't stop, which is strange because I hadn't had them in years. But I have heard
yeah,
bits and pieces from different experts talking, and there's this kind of override of our psyche where it knows it's a high calorie dense food. And because we're
right.
so depleted, we see it and it's like a flag of like, go eat that now, because that's going to get your levels up so much faster than you having some carbohydrates or protein, right? Like that's a quick source of
Absolutely.
energy. So all of a sudden we see these particular foods, and because we've deep down got that wisdom, we have the
Yeah,
intensity around it. So for a long time, I avoided nuts like the plague because, one, I didn't trust I could just have a handful and walk away. And two, when I was bulimic, it was a food that I tended to have episodes with. So I was also afraid of it because I didn't want to start and then not stop and then, do the other actions that
definitely.
followed through with it. Yeah. But to your point,
But
I wonder with the pregnancy side of things, is once I become, I don't want to say weight restored because it's a bit of a funny phrase. When I got to a
yeah,
point where my hunger was in check, like I was hungry and then I wasn't hungry, and then I was hungry and then I wasn't hungry. I could just go near nuts and have a handful or two or three if I felt like it, and then I could walk away. But I didn't have that until I had the waves of, I can actually feel when I'm hungry and I can feel when I'm not, versus always hungry.
right. Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I wonder, to your point with the trust of the pregnancy, I found when I was pregnant, both my pregnancies, my body wisdom, if you want to call it that, went through the roof. Like I knew if I was hungry, that signal was really loud. And if I wasn't hungry, it was also really loud. If I needed more protein, I knew I needed it. If I needed carbs, I knew it. Like it's like my intuition for my hunger got a speakerphone,
yeah.
right? I
It's
wasn't
it's
kind of like, oh, what
intuition,
do I need? It
right?
was like, oh wow, I know exactly, like, stop yelling at me. I know what I need. And I wonder on the peanut butter front with you, because you did recover quite quickly, and then, it really wasn't that long before you felt pregnant either. But I wonder if there's some element of that body wisdom really kicking up a notch where you've now seen the peanut butter and you're like, no, I trust that I will eat whatever it is my body needs, and then I can let it go.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I can just trust what my body needs. And when I was with a therapist before I got my period back, And she encouraged me. It was an eating disorder specialist and therapist, and she encouraged me, like, they'll give you homework, and she said, I encourage you to buy a jar of peanut butter. And I was like, oh, I can't do that, not right now. And she said, what type of peanut butter do you like, by the way? And I said, oh, the one I'm talking about is that really, natural type where you have to stir it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mhm,
That's
that's
the
what I
type
get
that
too.
yes, that's the one that I go bonkers over. That's the one that I'm talking about. That's the one that I love. So she said, well, then I want you to buy the Skippy, which you guys have Skippy Jif. It's like the brand that is just full of, I don't know if I'm allowed to say crap, but it's just
It's
stuff that's not,
it's not real
yeah,
peanuts,
exactly. Just
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, exactly. It's not real
There's some
peanuts,
fluffy
and
stuff
there's
in there.
sugars. Yeah, exactly. There's
Mm.
sugars and there's hydrogenated oils. And anyway, she said, buy a jar of that. And I said, oh, I don't want that. And she said, you think you don't want that, but I think that in your brain, you are categorizing it as bad. And I just thought, she's wrong. She's wrong. And so anyway, I did it, and I told my husband, you have to eat this. I'm just going to do it for my homework and try a little bit. And I tried a spoonful, and I truly, all I could taste was the sugar and the
It's not
additives.
real
Like, I
peanut
really
butter.
didn't like it. Exactly. It
Mm.
wasn't real
It's
peanut
like
butter, and it
plastic.
sat in the house. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. It's like fake. And it sat in the house untouched, which never happens with me with peanut butter. And it just sat completely untouched. So I did what she told me, but I knew myself. I knew it, that this is not the type of peanut butter that I was actually more nervous around the good stuff, because again, it's quick replenishment of calories, it's quick energy,
Mm.
and it's quick fuel. And that's what we didn't want. We, as like people with HA, we want to be starving, right?
Mm.
Like, that's kind of what we want, as a crazy way of saying it. But yeah, and then when I did buy the actual peanut butter, oh my god, that stuff is good. So that's what I really enjoy and indulge in, and now have been able to control. But it's just so good. So it's like two completely different foods. So I wanted to share that story, because when I said peanut butter, it could have meant any peanut butter, but also just because that was so interesting, that you know what you want. And I didn't want that
Mm.
Skippy stuff. So you know what you want.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
it so
know if I've
beautifully
ran
leads
out of
into
time on it.
no, no, I was just saying it so beautifully leads into that food value side of things too, because you could argue it is peanut butter, but you're like, but it's not. It's got all the fluffy stuff in it, right? Like I
Yeah.
want real peanut butter. So when your therapist suggested it, you're like, no, I actually don't want it. But it wasn't a calorie thing. It could have actually been like, you know what's in it. And it's not appealing.
Right.
Like it's not, and that's not a disordered thing. That's just a food value thing. Like I don't value that. And if I'm going to have
I
peanut
don't
butter, I'm
value
going to do
it.
it properly.
Yeah.
And that's your personal value, right? And other people might be different.
Yeah.
But little, I don't know, time just runs past so quickly, and I have enjoyed absolutely every single minute of our conversation. I just wanted to thank you so, so much for taking the time to come on and be with us again. And can you remind us how many weeks pregnant are you at the moment?
Yes, I'm 16 weeks pregnant. So it's the size of an
Ooh.
avocado.
Oh, your favorite.
It
It's so
is, you
exciting.
remembered. It's my favorite food. It is my absolute favorite food. So
I have
yeah.
avocados nearly every day, and now I'm
Me
actually
too.
thinking of you because you said you got those little earrings and stuff. So I'm like, oh, she's
Yes,
so
I have
cute.
the earrings. Wow, you have such a good memory. Yeah, and I just had an avocado for lunch before this, like with, eggs and
The best.
all that. So yeah, that's amazing. And time does fly by. And I just really value your time, and thank you for valuing mine. This is so wonderful.
It's been such a pleasure, and I don't know, I feel like there's going to be more in the future. It's just a little intuition.
Yes. Little intuition. I love that.
All right, my love, you have yourself a beautiful, beautiful day. I'll leave Little's Instagram handle in the comments below if you want to reach out and have a chat with her. But for now, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.